Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, we talk a lot about lines, and I got to tell you, I know a lot of you listening, you probably don't take it all that seriously because you're not an avid fisherman. You go out to enjoy yourself. But the type of line that we use is really critical. And I've talked so much about braided lines and all the different factors about what makes a braided line special. Bottom line is that no matter what line you choose to use, the knot that you tie is critical. And every type of line responds differently to different knots. And, for example, growing up, I would use an improved clinch knot. They called it the fisherman's knot. And you bring your line through the eye of the hook or the lure or whatever, and you wrap it around itself 7 times or 6 times, depending on how heavy the line is. The heavier it is, the less you wrap it around. But you wrap it around a number of times and then bring the end of that line back through the little loop you made and cinch it down. It's called a clinch knot. And there were different factors about that. You wanted to make sure when you clinched it down, you did it slowly, and it was always best to take saliva from your mouth and put it on the line so the line was lubricated, because as you cinch it down, you create heat and friction, and it weakens the line. So if you lubricate the line when you're tying the knot, it's always going to make it stronger in the end result. However, that same knot doesn't work well with other types of lines. For example, with braided line, a clinch knot doesn't work very well. Or with fluorocarbon, a polymer knot is an excellent knot. And I'm not going to tell you on the radio how to do it, but you could look it up. That is one of the best knots you could possibly tie. And it works for most type of lines. But it's important. If you're really going to take your line seriously, which I think you should, it's one of the great tools, you should investigate knots. You can find that online. You can find it in books. The best type of knot for the line that you're using. And it can really make a huge difference. I know I've experimented with different knots on lines, and especially if I'm fishing in the Grass River with really light braid. I use braid that is 10-pound test, and while that doesn't sound really light, it's so thin you can't believe it. It allows you to use light lures. But the knots that I use in that can take that from a 10-pound test or sometimes even 10-pound braid. If you just try to break it, it might break at 18 pounds or something. But if you don't have the right knot, you can break that line so easily you can't imagine. And so my lesson for today, I guess, is experiment and discover more about the knots that work best with different kinds of lines. Fluorocarbon, you don't hear me talk too much about that, and yet it is so critical. Fluorocarbon line should be the leader that you use for most kinds of fishing because, number one, fish can't see it as easily. Number two, it is more abrasion resistant than other types of line. It's more abrasion resistant than braid by far. And so you should learn how to tie your fluorocarbon line onto the braided line. And then the type of knot to use in fluorocarbon, which probably a polymer knot's a good one, to attach your bait. So next time, folks, when you go in a store and you look at lines, maybe you'll look at them a little bit differently. And remember, the key to making that line really work for you is the knot that you use. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.